Hello and welcome to episode 4 of our conversation with Patterson Board of Education President Oshin Castillo and Vice President Nakima Redmon. I'm Paul Brubaker. I'm the head of the Communications Department of Patterson Public Schools. Just before winter break, we decided to have a conversation with the board president and vice president as they come to the end of 2 years of being the first women to hold the board's top 2 leadership positions as a duo. This is the 4th episode of that conversation. In this episode, the board president and vice president talk about the challenges the district faced during the past 2 years. It's the longest of the 7 episodes of the series, and that's clearly because there's a lot to say about the challenges faced by Patterson Public Schools and the work being done to meet those challenges. What have been some of the challenges of the last 2 years?
The men.
I think a lot of it, the challenges have been like the negative perceptions of the district.
Yeah.
It's frustrating when you know you put so many hours and so much time into the district and some of the negative stories that come out, and that's all that the district is pegged with. And when you see the realities that's not true, when you see students that's actually striving hard to make sure that they are affluent in their student community, and not only just in this community and going on to college and doing great things, and that is not reported. So I had to get adjusted to a lot of the negative news press that we were getting because it wasn't fair. It's not a fair representation of the district, and sometimes it becomes hurtful because it's not seen in other districts. When you look at the news and look at other districts and you see things going on, we have the same dramas that other school has. We have the same bright students that other districts have. So just give us a fair chance. That's all I ask for. Sometimes when you see those students graduate on graduation day, they're so excited because they accomplished something. And their parents get the chance to see them accomplish stuff. And when you don't see it in the paper, that drives me nuts. And when next thing you hear, oh, this is going on, and it's just always plagued with something negative, that is the frustrating part for me. And one of the challenging parts that we have to always change the image of this district. So
That's something that I consider myself to be on the front lines of, and it sounds like there's particular stories that you really haven't liked. You want to talk about which ones have really?
Especially IB program. IB program was not plagued in a good light. I think those students worked extremely hard. This was great for the first year of implementation. I think those students don't get the credit that they deserve. They're here almost, 40 hours a week, sometimes even longer. And a lot of them have to either do part-time jobs to make sure that they meet their family obligations of income and stuff like that, so they take their education seriously and also help their parents out, because you have a lot of students that immigrated from other countries that come here and they have to be accountable to help their parents with the income. And they come and they do those extra hours and they make sure that they're the best students that they can be. And when that's not plagued in the light, that bothers you as an adult, because you're telling them that they don't have an opportunity or a chance to get out of some of the economic challenges that they may have. So, yeah.
And I guess it should be noted that it was with more than 600 school districts in the state of New Jersey,
We're the
to be
only-
one of 17 in the entire
Yes.
state, the only one in Passaic County to have the program. We're doing okay. Madam President?
It's been a little, I think I've had personally 2 different challenges. One has been kind of, it's between the underfunding of the school district, and as well as, to me it's frustrated. I've been to Trenton so many times, and 9 times out of 10 I end up more frustrated than when I got there, because I feel like the challenges that students in urban areas face are different, and sometimes just getting people to understand that are an hour, 2 hours away is very complicated when they've never had the opportunity or have even tried to come to the city of Patterson and meet with the students and meet with the administration and see what's going on. To me, that's frustrating because I don't feel like our students are getting a fair chance. It doesn't mean that the administration here isn't putting their best effort, but is what do we do to provide the resources for each student in Patterson, and the resources are different for each student, whether it's special ed, whether you're in ESL, whether you're a newcomer student, whether you're a student, like me, who worked all throughout high school, and had the opportunity to go to school, leave school at 11:50, 12 o'clock, and go to work. because I did have a financial obligation at home where I'm trying to help my mom. I do need things, and I think that accommodating all those needs has definitely been a challenge for this district, and not because we haven't wanted to, but it's just the resources that we have definitely been different. I have seen the change in administrations from year in and year out, and I think it's also played into the perception from the community, which has also been difficult for me to manage, I guess personally, because it's what the community's perception is, and not all, but some members of the community, what their perception is, and it's what's happening in actuality. It's things did occur here 20 something years ago, but it was 20 something years ago. Things have changed, things have moved on. The way that the personnel is processed, that contracts are processed, that education systems are processed are different than they were in 1991. And I think that sometimes we see what's going on in other areas, and not even in school boards, just in other municipalities or counties or states, and even in the federal government, honestly, right now. And we tend to take all of that plus the lack of resources and just say, well, they're not doing right by my child, while necessarily understanding all the background and all the work that's being put in by the people here. And I think it's just kind of educating the community on what are processes and how we do things. I think I found it a little bit difficult because some are very stuck on their mindset. This is what I think that you're doing, not necessarily because any of us personally, the school board or the administration, or because you may understand the process. And I think that we need to move on in the city of Paterson when we just talk about race and when we talk about religion.
Oh, yes.
We need to move on from those conversations. And if we don't start seeing our children or as people in this community as just that, people who live here, who are part of this community, not mattering where in the world they came from or what religion they practice or what food they eat. And I think that has definitely been very difficult for me to manage and to help other people in the community understand that these kids are all of our kids, that this board is an entire board, and whether we agree or disagree, we have to work together, and we don't have a problem working together, but some of the community members, have a problem with us working together. And
that's the ironic part, though.
There's no background problem. Sometimes things are exactly what they are.
I think that's the most ironic part of it. Like you said, we have a huge diversity problem. It's not a problem. I think it would be more a diverse city. So a lot of the issues that you're talking about are complex, and sometimes when you look at things when you were raised at home, and some of those things come across at board meetings or tables, changing the perception that we, as all different people sitting at a different background, or just the knowledge of what's going around, that we don't just get along just to say that we don't get along. I think that's another negative perception about this city. I think they don't give Paterson its just due. It was one of the first economic cities that brought industrial industry here and brought different types of people here. So I'm immersed in that I'm happy to be part of the fabric that called the city of Paterson.
Absolutely.
One of the most things that I think is that I'm grateful to be sitting here. I was one of those students in 1991 when the state took over. I was in 8th grade.
I won't tell you where I was.
So to come back and sit at the table and be able to make decisions that affect the students now is rewarding. I can recall when I was in 8th grade at School 27, some of the board members that were our PTO parents ended up being board members. And when you start to see them and you see them in the community and they're so happy that you're taking an interest of even getting involved in Board of Education or just getting involved to help kids, I think that's real rewarding. I can't wait till September 2020 because it will be, I think, a victory for us when we go back to local patrol. And I'm going to be one of the biggest cheerleaders because it's been way too long for almost 29 years later. That is a tragic tragedy, but I think well rewarding when the local people have a local say in their educational system, and that's why I think we push so hard to make sure that the community get involved, because we don't want them to ever think that these decisions that we make is just our decisions. It's the decisions that they have incorporated with our work and stuff like that, and they can hold us accountable. That's the reason why I always tell parents to make sure they come to our board meetings to hold us accountable, because when you don't have any accountability, you're just thinking that you're doing a great job. You got to be able to have a critic and make sure that you can listen to those critics and be willing to change yourself and change your mindset. And I think that was one of the challenges when we first came here, trying to get on the same accord and change our mindset and thinking that
Change the culture.
Yes. So it was one of the biggest challenges. Once we were able to change the culture and be able to break through, you see the fruits of our labor. And I hope that it continues on in the next challenge of going back into local control in the next 6 months. So it's rewarding. And then, but it was great when we actually went down to Trenton and sat there and listened to some of the commissioners talk about how they were excited to see that we were going back to local control. But in the midst of it, I didn't think it was going to be as difficult trying to keep up their pace.
My goodness.
And also their expectations of us, because the expectations changed when we got down there. They expected us to do more with less. And come up with creative ways to try to make sure that our kids stay educated. So that was one of the challenging parts. The first year was like smooth. This year, it seemed like we could go up from one high to one low, back to another high, and back to some lows. So on a high note, I think, again, when I saw the students that did the perfect scores on our test the other night at our last school board meeting.
That's why we do it.
And you see why we do it. A lot of the students from School 28, which is our Blue Ribbon school, when you get to see the parents and how they're excited